What does a soldier getting kicked out of the army have to teach you about your life today? This question isn't just about military discipline. It's a doorway into understanding the invisible architecture of human connection. The truth is, the principles that determine life and death on a battlefield are the very same ones that dictate success and failure in your boardroom, your family, and your friendships. We're about to uncover why. Look, let's be brutally honest. No institution, no matter how revered, is flawless. The armed forces, for all their structure and honor, have their share of brilliant, inspiring commanders and, inevitably, some not-so-great ones who operate from a place of fear or ego. This spectrum exists in every human organization. But what makes the military's most powerful lessons so profoundly impactful is the context in which they're learned. These lessons are amplified, rendered impossible to ignore, because the price of failure isn't just embarrassment, a missed promotion or financial loss. It is, quite literally, the ultimate price. In our daily lives, a mistake might cost us revenue, a client, or a job. These are significant, yes, but they are recoverable. Out there, in the stark reality of combat or high-stakes operations, miscalculations have consequences that are absolute and cannot be undone. That terrifying clarity is the crucible that forges wisdom, and it's precisely why the insights gained there cut so deep and stay with you forever. Let me share a story I haven't told publicly before, one that reshaped my entire understanding of responsibility. I was visiting a training facility for future Army officers, a place designed not just to teach skills, but to perform the ultimate alchemy of turning civilians into leaders. This is where they separate those who can bear the immense weight of command from those who cannot. I was scheduled to meet the general in charge, a man legendary for his fanatical punctuality. In that environment, being precisely on time is considered late. You're expected to be early, prepared, and mentally switched on, a state of constant readiness. Yet, to my surprise, he arrived late to our meeting, entering the room with a palpable tension and apologizing profusely with genuine distress in his voice. He explained there had been what he called a serious incident on the base, and they were in the process of deciding whether to discharge a soldier because of it. My mind, conditioned by civilian consequences, immediately raced to the worst possible scenarios. Had there been theft, violence, a security breach? What horrific act could justify such a severe and career-ending response? The gravity in the general's manner suggested something monumental, and I found myself compelled to ask directly, what did he do? His answer, when it came, stunned me with its apparent simplicity. He neglected his duty while on guard, the general stated plainly, his voice devoid of anger, filled instead with a kind of grim disappointment. I remember my confusion in that moment, the disconnect between the crime and the punishment. "You're removing him for that?" I asked, unable to hide my disbelief. "For dozing off during what's essentially a safe routine stateside assignment? It seems extreme." The general's reply fundamentally rewired my understanding of failure and integrity. "You misunderstand the situation completely," he said, his eyes locking with mine to ensure the lesson landed. "The sleeping was a mistake, a moment of human failure. We understand fatigue. Our issue is with what happened next. When we first questioned him about the incident, he looked us in the eye and lied. He denied it completely, even when we presented him with initial circumstantial evidence. He constructed an elaborate story to cover his tracks. Only when we provided irrefutable proof, when he had no possible escape from the truth, did his posture collapse, and he finally uttered the words, 'I am responsible for what I did.' Our issue isn't primarily with the original error. It's that you don't get to choose when to accept blame based on when you get caught. True accountability means accepting responsibility the moment you make the choice, not when the evidence boxed you into a corner." He continued, drawing the crucial distinction. "We actually had another soldier who failed in exactly the same way just last month. That young man, the moment his shift was over, went directly to his superior officer. He confessed everything without hesitation, owned his failure completely, accepted his discipline without complaint, and today he remains with us, having earned back our respect through his radical honesty. That soldier we trust completely. This distinction highlights a universal truth. Trust isn't built when things go right and the sun is shining. It's forged in the dark, messy moments when you own what went wrong, especially when doing so is difficult and carries a cost. Then the general laid out the even more brutal practical truth of why this matters so much, translating principle into life or death reality. If I were to place this first individual, the one who lied, in a position of command, he explained, and his unit suspects for even a second that he will lie to save himself, that he won't put their safety first, or that he'll avoid answering for his failures, that essential bond of trust, the glue of any effective team, shatters completely. And in a combat situation, where split-second decisions determine who lives and who dies, that broken trust doesn't just create friction or resentment, it means American lives are lost. That is the unforgiving math of leadership. That's the reality we face every single day. This perspective makes perfect, logical sense within a battlefield context, but we need to recognize that we are essentially ancient creatures, equipped with Stone Age brains trying to navigate a complex, hyper-modern world. For thousands of years before cities, corporations, and digital networks, we lived in small, tight-knit tribal groups, rarely numbering more than 150 individuals, what anthropologists now call Dunbar's number. In that primal setting, trust wasn't just a social luxury or a virtue, it was your lifeblood, your primary insurance policy for survival. If someone was honest about their mistakes, if they admitted they broke a tool or took the wrong path, you learned you could trust them when predators approached, when winter was coming, or when rival tribes threatened. You knew they had your back because they demonstrated a pattern of integrity, even when it was inconvenient. Conversely, if they deceived you, hid their errors, or boasted to elevate themselves at the group's expense, you quickly learned you couldn't rely on them when danger came in the night. That subtle, creeping distrust could create tiny fractures that, under pressure, doomed the entire community to starvation, attack, or internal collapse. We still carry those deep-seated survival instincts within us, often without realizing it. Our subconscious evaluations of each other, whether a coworker, a friend, a partner, or a leader, remain profoundly primal. The subtle signals we constantly send and receive about reliability, honesty, and group commitment are the same signals our ancestors used to determine who would help them survive another winter and who would be a liability. Observing these human dynamics where the stakes are absolute and immediate, as in military contexts, makes it startlingly clear they're operating everywhere in our modern lives, from corporate boardrooms and project teams to family dinners and social circles, which brings us to the profound danger of ostracization, an act we often trivialize but which is in fact a social nuclear weapon. Why is ostracizing someone so damaging, far beyond mere hurt feelings? To understand, think of a classic nature documentary showing a vast herd of wildebeest on the African savanna. They appear to graze peacefully, but they're actually in a constant state of nervous vigilance, a collective consciousness attuned to threat. One animal hears the snap of a twig or catches an unfamiliar scent, and the entire herd freezes, transmitting a wave of alertness instantly through the group. Now notice their defensive formation. The strong, healthy reproductive members are unconsciously protected in the center, a place of relative safety, while the old, the sick, the weak, and the inexperienced are pushed to the periphery. When predators like lions or hyenas strike, they naturally and efficiently target these vulnerable outsiders. This harsh, unconscious strategy protects the genetic core and future of the herd, ensuring its continued survival. For a human being to be pushed out of the tribe, to be shunned, mocked, or systematically isolated, triggers this same ancient, visceral terror. It is our oldest and deepest fear, coded into our DNA over millennia. It's the fear of being the wildebeest on the edge. Humans are social animals, just like those wildebeest, elephants, or wolves. Our brains are wired for connection, that cortisol-fueled alertness, that sinking feeling in your stomach when you walk into a room where you might not be welcome, or when you feel excluded from a group text, is the same physiological survival response that kept our ancestors alive in dangerous, unfamiliar territories. When we mock, bully, exclude, or systematically isolate people, we are enacting a modern, psychological version of pushing them to the periphery of the tribe. The psychological terror they experience isn't just about loneliness or sadness, it's identical to that of the wildebeest forced to the edge of the herd. The terrifying primal awareness that you have been offered to the lions, that the community has withdrawn its protection. This profound understanding helps explain the extreme reactions to isolation. It's why the quiet kid who eats alone every day, or the employee who is constantly sidelined and gaslit, can sometimes reach a breaking point. Isolated individuals, particularly young men without strong social bonds, can become dangerously unstable because their fundamental human need for belonging has been shattered. This triggers a desperate, often destructive survival mode that screams, "If I can't belong to the tribe, then I must survive alone, by any means necessary." This isn't to excuse violence, but to understand its deepest, most tragic roots in the violation of our core human programming. These underlying patterns of trust, accountability, and tribal belonging become starkly visible when the stakes are immediate survival. They're just harder to recognize when the consequences are masked as merely financial, social, or professional. We call it office politics or drama instead of seeing it for what it is, the modern theater for our most ancient survival games. The principles, however, remain exactly the same. Your reputation for accountability is your single most valuable asset. The team that trusts each other is the team that wins, and the person you exclude today is being psychologically sent to the edges of the savannah. If you found this perspective valuable, if it gave you a new lens through which to view your relationships, your leadership, and your communities, then you understand that these winds of thought carry real insight. Please help our community grow by liking this video and following for more content from Winds of Thought. Your engagement helps us continue exploring these deep, fundamental truths about what makes us human and how we can build a world that understands the profound power of trust and the true cost of breaking it.